What up? This your boy Slim Thugger. Y'all make sure y'all tune in to Recon Athletes Podcast, man. Much love.
ReconAthlete.com podcast is brought to you by Lawnman ATX and Kreitz Market. I think we got that on the live video there, Zach. Bless you, by the way.
Salud.
It was two of them. Bless you, bless you.
That's why I said twice.
Oh, there you go.
ReconAthlete.com podcast episode number 32. Started off with Zach Luceto's sneezes there.
Oh, y'all are now too. So
yeah, man. You all right?
Content right there.
Man, that's some real good content. We're going to talk a little bit about the Westlake game last night. Big 42-14 winners over San Antonio Brandeis. And do some college football, also NFL today. We had the Utah Utes go down to Oregon last night, and we'll get our opinions on what that does to the college football playoff scenarios. All right, Westlake, 42-14 winners over Brandeis. Huge win for them last night. 438 yards of total offense for the Chaparrals, only 227 for Brandeis. And before we came on air, you guys were talking that Brandeis was able to move the ball a little bit. They just couldn't get it into the end zone. Zach?
No, I mean, Brandeis has always, that's kind of been their stick in San Antonio is a lot of like the powerhouse schools over there, the Steels and the Judsons are known for just being really physical, like having the athletes that kind of put their offense over the edge. But Brandeis is just kind of like to spread you out, throw the ball around, and they're going to rack up yards on you. And more of from a schematic standpoint, they always have a pretty solid quarterback. Their offensive line's always pretty solid too. So it doesn't surprise me that Paul was talking about Brandeis being able to move the ball a little bit.
Yeah, and they only got in the end zone a couple times. One of them was set up by a little reverse kickoff return, and that was pretty much the one big play that I saw Brandeis have last night, Paul.
Yeah, the biggest catalyst for Brandeis last night was Aiden Iniesta Rodriguez, and that young man could just flat out run. And he's a sophomore, so he'll be back next year. And I think he played as a freshman as well. As far as I know, he's a sophomore this year. But the quarterback battle was getting real chippy and talking a little smack out there against the Westlake defense, but I knew going into this game this was going to be a huge win for Westlake, and I knew that they would be able to move the ball at will. I didn't know their defense. Tony Zalazar had that unit just on point and limited all the production for Six, which is Battle, their quarterback for Brandeis, and held them, to very limited yards. And, of course, really only 7 points. That late touchdown late in the game was really just garbage time. But shout out to Westlake doing what they do. Next week they'll have a big matchup. So we'll see. We know where the game's going to be at McLean Stadium in Waco for Baylor Stadium. So we'll see who their opponent will be. That'll be determined later today.
And who are they supposed to play against?
So as far as I know right now, it's either going to be the winner of the Cypress Creek matchup against Katy Taylor. So whoever wins that game, they'll be matching up with Westlake next Saturday at McLean Stadium.
And last night for the Westlake Chaparrals, really spreading the ball around. Kirkland Michaud just taking over that quarterback position. I know we talked about earlier in the season how Westlake was running three quarterbacks, but Kirkland Michaud is the starter now. He's got his hands on that position, and he spreads the ball around. I mean, he had, 20 completions. It looks like he's got 6 different receivers, 6 catches for 94 yards for Jaden Greathouse, the great freshman. Mason Mangum only had 2 catches for 6 yards, and that's their number one wide receiver.
Yeah.
Jackson Coker had 7 catches, 63 yards. Ryan Lindley had 6 for 95. And, you mentioned it last night on the Messenger, Paul, about the receivers for Westlake. Mason Mangum is the man, and he's the guy that only had 2 catches last night.
Lindley, to me, was the biggest catalyst for them last night, and he really was just moving that ball. I didn't know he had that sense of awareness to just find gaps in the zone, and he was just like, I remember one play, he just made a huge crossing route, and Michaud, he's a baseball player, and he had that ball just on a rope, and he just stuck his hand out and got that ball across the middle. Lindley did, and I was just like extremely impressed with the receiving core, and I was just like, man, how come nobody's putting a guy? There was one play where Brandeis didn't even put a guy on Jaden Greathouse, and the young man is like 6'2", 190, 200 pounds, and there wasn't anybody out there covering him. He could just go get the ball at a high point at any time he wanted, and his touchdowns came with ease. He had 2 TDs on the night last night, so shout out to that receiving core for Westlake, and I'd like to see how they match up. You know, I'm thinking maybe it's going to be Cypress Creek that they played next week, but that would be a great test to see if they can continue to move on to the semifinals.
So Taco Tour is over, right, Zach?
The taco tour is ended.
What I was going to say, we were talking about how this was going to be a sit-down meal. Nah, man, they just cruised through the drive-thru on this one too.
Yeah, they did. They drove through and got a couple of barbacoa, maybe some al pastor.
Yeah.
And then they cruised along. And next week is the fact that Westlake and Lake Travis is the fact that they go through San Antonio and the Valley and then back through San Antonio a detriment to them? Because are they going to be ready for the step up in competition next, Friday or Saturday?
I mean, I think it is, and I think it has been for them in the years that they haven't made it to state, and even in the years that they've lost in state too. I think just as a community too, I think that area gets really excited when their team goes on these playoff runs, and they kind of start thinking like it's state championship or bust, because the way that they're handling these teams in the playoffs. But in reality, they're not playing. They're not playing anybody that's a real factor like they are when it comes to state championship contention. So I think that is a detriment to them, not only in terms of like getting ready for the team they're going to play in the semifinals or and let alone the state championship game, but I think also it kind of establishes like a false momentum. Mm-hmm. Like you have momentum, but it's not going to where you want to go. Where these schools, whoever you play in the semis or in the state championship, that team has momentum too, and it's a momentum that they've earned like the right way for when it comes to these big time games like that.
Paul?
I just think that the only really team that they have in competition with them for Westlake is Lake Travis in the in-district. And so I think that they have a little bit of false bravado, like you were saying, Zach, but I think the main thing is they want to be healthy. And I think that going through the playoffs and having to go through San Antonio, they didn't pick what region they were assigned. I'm not saying they may have not influenced it, but they were placed there by the UIL, and they're playing the hand that they were dealt. And so at the end of the day, I'm not going to put blame on the student athletes or the coaching staff. I'm gonna leave that to the administrators, because they're the ones who are they're the ones who are not making the decisions. They're just playing the game.
Yeah, and they're just taking on the opponents that are, like you said, are put in front of them. Right. They're taking care of business, but the competition is going to step up next week. So
it's a big step. It's
a huge step.
It's not gradual. It's a leap.
Yeah. So how does Coach Dodge and his crew go about getting their players ready, basically hyped up? Because the game is now going to speed up.
Yes.
Tremendously. So I think it's going to be detrimental for Coach Dodge and his guys to practice very, very fast this week. So we'll see how they play against, was it Katy Taylor or Cypress Creek next week?
Correct.
And we've got still a couple of Austin area teams, Manor and Shadow Creek. Shout out to Snoop Daniel on his way down to Alamo Dome to check out that game, and then Lake Travis playing Converse Judson at 4:00. That Manor game happening here in about 45 minutes at noon. All right, last night the Pac-12 championship went down. This had major implications for the college football playoff. Oregon 37, Utah 15. Utah's done. Oregon is done. Does this open the door for Baylor to get into the top 4 or Oklahoma? Zach?
I mean, I think it definitely does. But before we talk about that, I think Utah, like, I want to compare Utah to like UCF.
Okay.
Where they're always talking about that they're in playoff contention. They bring a really solid record to the conference championship every year, or late into the conference season if it's not the conference championship, and they're talking national championship aspirations, but they're just not for real.
Yeah,
they're just not. I mean, and I think it should be a bigger deal for Utah to win the conference championship than it should be for them to think about a national championship, because I mean, they getting in the Pac-12 for them was a big deal, and so I think they should kind of try to accomplish that first. But we should have never been talking about Utah as a playoff contender, because I mean, I think what we saw today, even if they would have come back and squeaked out a win over Oregon, they would have made the playoff. Or they would have made the playoff for sure. and from what we saw last night, it wouldn't have been deserved. Like they're not a team that would have made any noise, and I think that goes the same for this Big 12 winner too. I think as a Texas fan, you don't want to see either of those teams make it into the playoff because it's a Baylor team that you can't beat. It's an OU team that you can never beat, and it's an OU team that can never make any noise in the playoff. It's a Baylor team that'll get blown out too. So I mean, if you're trying to talk about getting this Texas program back on track when it comes to national level conversation, I mean, if you can't beat an OU team that perennially goes into the first round of the playoff and gets blown out, then that reflects very, very poorly on you when it comes to you saying Texas is back. Because to me, when I hear Texas is back, I think it's back on the national spotlight. And if you can't beat teams like OU and Baylor, and I don't think either of those teams will make a splash when they make it. But in my opinion, I think one of them will make it into the playoff. I think that reflects very poorly on not only Texas, but I think on the Big 12 as a whole when it comes to there being a potential contender in the Big 12 ever.
So, you did talk OU Baylor here, and OU and Baylor going right now early in the first quarter, still 0-0. Baylor, to me, if they win, I believe that they're in. I think it's going to be a little bit harder for Oklahoma if they win this game to get in just because of their loss. Thoughts about that, Paul?
Well, I appreciate Zach's loyalty to the University of Texas and how they are the center of the Big 12, but we should be excited for the two teams who have the opportunity to go to the college football playoff, and I'm sure the Big 12 are going to celebrate them. And I think that's where I was kind of bringing up the notion that maybe like a week ago Baylor could slide in, and I really thought that Oregon, if they would have taken care of business against Arizona State, would have been that next team, and they should have been in my opinion, but they didn't take care of business. Now it's on Baylor. Baylor, can you beat Oklahoma on a neutral site? We're going to find out soon. The game's going on currently right now, but I think that the Big 12 should be celebrating their champion, especially if they have the opportunity to get into the college football playoff. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be successful in the playoff, but we just don't know, and that's why we have to line up every single day or every weekend to get the ball played and see what the outcome is going to be, because these athletes who are playing at Baylor, just like Maynard, once they believe and they believe in that system, they can own it. Now it's up to the opponent to show up and play the game. Now we know probably if Baylor wins or if Oklahoma wins, they're going to be playing Ohio State most likely. If not, they're going to be playing LSU, and we're talking about 1A and 1B with those two schools. But I think that Big 12 should celebrate their champion, go to the college football playoff, and then next year maybe the Longhorns can get things ramped back up. They're bringing in the quarterback coach from LSU. Maybe he can turn things around with them, maybe pull in some new recruits or recapture some of those decommits. But right now, the game that are being played is the Big 12 championship, and that's with Baylor and Oklahoma, and I think that champion should be celebrated as they go on.
I think that would have made more sense for Utah, because the Pac-12 is a team that hasn't been represented in the college football playoff. Mm-hmm. So I think it would show that they're taking a step in the right direction when it comes to this thing. Whereas the Big 12 and Oklahoma and specifically is a team that has made the playoff regularly and had the same outcome.
Right. So
you're not taking a step anywhere. And if anything, you could argue Baylor, because they're taking a step as a program, which I think is huge. And Matt Rule is going to make $1 bajillion if
he stays.
Right. Mm-hmm. Either way, even if he doesn't stay, if they beat OU, his check is going to get even bigger.
They're talking about NFL with him rumors. Just
right. Sure, he go coach the Patriots if they beat OU, sure. The
Patriots.
Yeah, they're getting old over there, man. Matt Rule's on the up and come.
I agree.
But I just think it's a redundant step. It's like what do they say about like insanity or whatever? It's like doing the same thing
over and over again,
different result.
Yeah,
that's what's happening. Is the Big 12 is doing the same thing, going to the first round and expecting to win, but they're not. They're just kind of exposing to the national media that all of the arguments that you've heard on TV is that Big 12 plays no defense. Big 12 is these like kind of gimmicky offenses. That's true.
But that's not really true anymore, because look at the Iron Bowl last week. What was the final score there? Who played defense on either side of the ball of Auburn and Alabama? 48-45.
Right.
So I don't think that is, like you said, the common, I guess, misnomer now, because it was true in the past, but I don't think that's true anymore. I think SEC plays as little defense as Big 12 does these days.
I mean, I don't think anybody in the Big 12 plays the defense that Georgia plays.
I mean, that could be true, but I mean, you can't. And that's the one thing about SEC is everybody takes one team, which has been Alabama for the past 10, 15 years,
right?
And they take those characteristics and they give them to the rest of the conference for some reason.
But the Big 12 doesn't have.
Excuse me, guys.
We need a bigger table.
Maybe
the Big 12 doesn't have a team that you could say that about.
They have OU. I mean, OU's in the fifth straight Big 12 championship.
But I mean, for OU,
they've won 4 in a row.
OU, you talk about offense, and that's already the Big 12's thing. Is they've kind of already accepted that as OU's offense is like resemblant of the rest of, I don't even know if that's a word, of the Big 12. But I mean, no one plays defense. I mean, you could say Baylor, but I don't think they're on the same map of a Georgia defense or even an Auburn defense. I don't think.
But we're talking about one team though. I mean, we're not talking about a whole conference anymore. I mean, yeah, Georgia has a really good defense. That's great. But the rest of the SEC, I mean, I'm just, to me, it's been something that's happened quite a bit over the years is, Alabama's the best team in the country, so they're in the SEC, so the SEC is the best conference in the country. Georgia's got the best defense in the country, and they're in the SEC, so SEC gets all the credit for playing defense. We saw what happened when we've seen it this whole year. The SEC defensive have been exposed not only in the games in conference but games out of conference as well. And I don't know. I'm tired of the SEC bias, I guess, because right now, in my opinion, if Oklahoma wins this game and they're up 7-0 now over Baylor here in the first quarter, 9.5 minutes left, if they win this game, they're not going to be in the college football playoff. I really don't think they're going to be in the college football. If Baylor wins, they'll be avenging their one loss against OU. And I think it'll be hard to put, in my opinion, a one-loss Big 12 champion or leave them out of this college football playoff, especially when that one loss was to OU. Now, OU's loss was to Kansas State. Much easier for the committee to leave OU out of this, and whether or not, and it almost takes away, if OU wins this ball game, to me, it takes away the result of the SEC championship.
So I mean,
it doesn't matter what happens now.
So you think if OU wins, then Georgia's in no matter what?
No matter what, I really do. I think if OU wins this game, I think Georgia is in the. I think they're in
over. I mean, I guess everybody will have 2 losses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and everybody would have 2 losses.
I mean, I just
all the way until Memphis at 17.
I mean, I don't know. That's just the way I feel right now. I don't know. It could be different. Because if LSU loses, I think they're still in.
No, I think that goes for Ohio State.
Ohio State as well. So I mean, I think we've already kind of established that LSU and Ohio State are pretty much in. I think LSU and Ohio State want to win their conference championships. You don't want to go limping into the college football playoff, right? But that's just kind of where I'm at right now. OU is winning this ball game 7-0. I think if the Big 12 wants a representative in the college football playoff, I think Baylor has to win this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, Chris. And you kind of have to think to yourself, what's going to happen if Oklahoma wins and Georgia loses also? You're going to leave out a 2-loss Alabama team and you're going to keep in a 2-loss Georgia team? And that's where I'm like, what are we doing here? And if Memphis wins their conference championship, you're going to leave out that 1-loss team? I know it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but geez, if we're talking about losses, and I understand we have to take into consideration strength of schedule, but it would look really bad on the college football committee to leave in a 2-loss Georgia team or put in a 2-loss Oklahoma team and have Alabama sitting out here twiddling their thumbs. It's gonna look really awkward and it's gonna look really weird in my opinion.
So you're telling me that UCF went undefeated in the wrong year?
Man, maybe.
So I mean, I think the Oregon win last night, I think just kind of
lost.
No, Oregon won.
You're right.
Yeah. The Oregon win last night. He turns his mic off. The Oregon win last night just kind of threw a curveball. I think, but it actually kind of, cleared things up a little bit?
I think it made things very complicated.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, to me, it made it cleared it up just because it now Pac-12 is out,
Yes.
right?
Well, I mean, I think it would have been even more clear if Oregon would have won because then
Oregon
they're
didn't
the
win.
next team in.
If Oregon-
Utah.
If Utah would have won, because they would have been the next team in no matter what.
If Oregon would have beat Arizona State, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that.
But right, if Utah
If
would
Utah would have won, they're the next team
and
in.
we shouldn't be talking about Utah either. But my point is that this is the win last night, plus Baylor losing today, hypothetically, makes things complicated and pushes the argument for expanding the playoff. Because people want to talk about 8 teams, and I don't think that. I think there should be a 10 team, and I'll leave that for another discussion. But that loss last night,
I think there should be 64.
Utah's loss, coupled with Baylor's loss, hypothetically, makes things very, very cloudy for the college football playoff committee right now.
All right, so OU's winning right now. My opinion, Baylor has to win to get in.
To save the college football playoff committee, Baylor needs to win.
Baylor needs to win this game. I think Georgia. Are we all LSU, Ohio State's in no matter what?
Yes.
I think.
I've come on here and said that LSU should throw the game.
Yeah, I know you. I know you said. I mean, LSU shouldn't even be playing Burrow or any of their starters, right?
No.
So LSU,
Coach O run
Ohio State. I think both of us. I think all 3 of us are in agreement that those. So basically, there's 2 spots that are up for grabs.
Yeah.
And Clemson. They're what, a 28-point favorite, I think.
Yeah.
It's 28.5.
It's a lot.
So Clemson, nobody's talking about them. They're the defending national champions. They're undefeated.
Paul Feinbaum talking about him.
Who?
Paul Feinbaum?
I don't know who that is.
Paul Feinbaum, he's like a SEC expert.
I don't talk about SEC.
Okay,
They're
Chris.
overrated.
Okay, Chris. All right. We'll talk about Clemson.
We were just talking about
defending
Georgia and
national champion.
Alabama.
I'm just playing.
That's why I said, okay, Chris.
I'm just
Anyways,
messing.
the point is that for Clemson to stay relevant, Dabo's having to beef with some sportscaster from SEC. Why?
That's because
nobody's talking about them because they're so good. They just cruise through the ACC and they got kind of like Westlake and Lake Travis. They ain't gonna play anybody until the semifinals in the college football playoff. So I think Clemson is. If people are sleeping on them, don't, because they're gonna come out and they may shock somebody.
See, this is what I was saying. I mean, but is it going to be shocking though? I mean, they're the defending national champions.
There's no
they
legacy.
They have not lost a football game this year.
There's no legacy.
They're defending national champion. Where is the respect?
That's kind of like the argument that we
Where
had
is the respect?
earlier in the season where we had a non-district like a 5A defending state champion play against a 6A school. Is that an upset?
Right.
I mean, you have the defending national champion that hasn't played anybody playing against a battle-tested LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an upset?
No. Yes. I don't know. No.
Even if it's like a 1 and a 3,
Yeah, I mean, to me, if it's Clemson playing LSU, let's say it's 2-3, right?
2-3.
I think Clemson beating LSU. I mean, if you're just looking at the game this year,
LSU beating Clemson upset?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I think. Well, okay. So
Not
if you're
this
just
year.
it's 2 versus 3, right?
Yes.
So
1 and 4, 2 and 3.
So Clemson's going to be
Paul.
probably number 3. Thank you, Paul.
Captain Obvious.
So I guess technically the 3 team beating the 2 team would be an upset,
Right.
But to me, I don't think that's an upset because I think Clemson is a defending national champion and they're an undefeated team. So I don't think that's, to me, in my mind, an upset. It might be to you guys.
I think they should just take the 4 teams and then have them just draw names.
Draw
for
straws.
who they play. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
The only thing
Throw that on
Clemson
TV.
lost last year is their defensive line. That's the only thing they lost last year. And these teams, LSU, besides Ohio State, these teams don't run the ball. Only Ohio State runs the ball.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Ohio State's in, LSU's in, Clemson is in. Who's the 4th team?
Gosh.
Zach.
I mean, the only team that has a chance is Georgia to do anything, but I mean, it's going to be whoever wins the Big 12.
Do the rankings change then?
This is where I see it. If Georgia barely lose. If Georgia loses by 7 or less, they're in. If Oklahoma blows out Baylor, then Oklahoma's in. And if Baylor wins, they're in.
It's whoever wins the Big 12, no matter what.
No, I don't.
I think OU is a big enough national name.
Okay. Fair enough.
Lincoln Riley is a big enough national name.
Fair enough.
OU is Jalen Hurts is a big enough story. OU fans are going to buy enough tickets that to make up for a loss against Kansas State.
And I'll buy that for $1 because
dollar bills.
I'll buy that because I mean, even though my argument is the opposite of that, but that is a good point. Those are very good points because I mean, there is that marketing value. And I think the college football playoff committee,
the college football player done won Baylor to win. Shoot, I couldn't even sell my Big 12 ticket. You know?
Well, I kind of disagree on that front. And the reason why I disagree on that front is if y'all go back to 2005 when Texas was playing for a national title. Now, I know this is not for a national title, but it's a playoff. All of the schools, even A&M, rallied. And for one night, A&M was saying they're going to cheer for the Longhorns in that national title. Baylor's a school from the state of Texas. The state of Texas travels. That translates into dollars. A lot of people would tune into the game just because it's a Texas school. And that's where I'm thinking, man, if Baylor does get in, I think it would be a huge impact in a positive way for not only recruiting in the state of Texas, recruiting for Baylor, but I think a lot of the schools, especially Texas and A&M and Texas Tech and TCU, I think they would fully back Baylor as being the representative for the state of Texas.
I just think OU nationally has more fans than Baylor plus whatever Longhorns or Aggies or Red Raiders want to tune in and watch Baylor.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Like I mean, I think OU is a big enough national brand. You could be in
all of their kids are from Texas practically.
Yeah,
I mean, I get that.
Right. I mean, you could be somewhere across the nation and run into somebody that whose favorite player is Kyler Murray or is wearing a Baker Mayfield Browns jersey. I mean, I think Baker Mayfield in that Browns team has been one of the best things that ever happened to OU, just because the Browns have been in the national spotlight so much. And that I mean, if you're a fan of the Browns, you're probably a fan of Baker, and you're probably a fan of OU. But I mean, I think the only team that has a shot against Ohio State, I think, is Georgia.
Paul,
let's play the game. What's the score now in that Baylor Oklahoma game?
it is still 7-0.
35-0.
What
This is coming out after the game. So
what's time in the quarter? We're live right now.
It's still 7-0. About 7 minutes left in the first quarter. OU has the ball. This game is on ABC, by the way, if you want to check it out. Of course, don't go away from our live stream because we have so many people watching us right now.
ABC sponsor us.
ABC, shout out. All right.
Disney money.
ReconAthlete.com podcast episode number 32. Talked high school. We talked college. Let's get into the NFL, fellas. We got coming down to it, last 4 games of the season. Real quickly, Paul and I were completely wrong about the Cowboys game on Thursday night.
Yep.
Super wrong. I was glad I did. I was like, you know what? Good thing I didn't make that bet with Kalunga.
John even talked about that. He was like, man, did I pick that bet? And I was like, no, you didn't.
I mean, like I was just completely wrong. And the team has, to me, quit on Jason Garrett, and have also quit on Dak Prescott. That is my opinion. I think that's what's happening. I don't think Jason Garrett is the head coach that they need, and I don't think Dak Prescott's the quarterback they need.
And I think the good players on that team have started to realize that too, and because they know. I mean, Amari Cooper knows, Zeke Elliott knows. If I ball out, Dak Prescott's going to get paid. Mm-hmm. If I run for,
and he's staying here.
If I run for 100-something yards, Dak Prescott's going to make more money than me.
True,
and that's crazy to think about. Like that, Zeke Elliott is basically carrying Dak's money to him. So he's like, okay, I'm good. I'll just wait till you're gone, and then I'll go crazy again. I already got paid.
Yeah, the best part, or not the best part. I mean, that whole game was terrible, but the beginning of the game, they go down, score that first touchdown, easy 7-0. Paul and I were on Messenger, like, all right, cool. And then Snoop, shout out to Snoop, he messages us, and he's like, this is exactly how the Buffalo game started.
Well, to follow that, Chicago drove down, and they get in the red zone, and then Dallas pulls a pick, and I'm like, wow, that's impressive. That's your defense. You give up, and then you have a turnover when previously you're giving a touchdown. And then I put on the messenger, wow, that was impressive. And then that's when Snoop brings us all back to reality.
Yeah.
And there are no words. Any arguments that you want to justify Dallas is this or Dallas is that have no legs. There's no point in talking about it. We just need to watch this
Last 3 games.
carnival, watch it go down in a there's a song, I can't think of the quotes right now. Anyways, they
Play in
just
Spanish.
Yeah, it could be. I just need maybe if I had a talk I could remember. But Dallas is just going to go down in a glory of flames, and I think that if Jerry was smart, let it ride out. Don't make any changes now. And this is why who you gonna replace Garrett with?
I mean, you don't
do it?
You don't make
Kellen
any,
Moore.
you don't make any changes right now. I don't think. But the crazy thing is that the Cowboys could still win the NFC East.
Yeah, and host a wild card
and host
game.
a game. So I mean, I know at this point Jason Garrett's fate is already written. I do think that a Super Bowl win might save him, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm tired of hearing that.
I don't think it's going to happen but it's not going to happen. I'm not going to say I don't think it's going to happen. It's not going to happen.
And look, I'm going to talk the 85% of Cowboys fans out there. If you like this, keep buying the product. And what I mean by that is keep buying tickets, keep buying parking, keep buying their products as far as jerseys, merch, Miller Lite beer, because it's all Cowboys.
Yeah.
But if you want to change and you want to go back to a Super Bowl, the only way you can do that is let Jerry know through the pocketbook. That's the only way things change, and it's not because of blind loyalty.
Zach?
So we're talking about. I said earlier the good players on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Does Dallas have any Pro Bowlers this year?
They do, but they're not performing as Pro Bowl.
No, who's gonna? So do they make the Pro Bowl?
I bet you Dak makes the Pro Bowl based on his stats.
So do you think if Dak makes the Pro Bowl, Amari makes the Pro Bowl too?
I don't think so.
No.
So is Dak's the only Pro Bowler on the team?
Based on his stats.
There could be an old lineman in there maybe, but no skill players, in my opinion.
Not Amari
not
Cooper.
Dak.
No Dak. No Zeke. Dak probably because of his performance stats, but that's it.
I mean, it's all paper. It's a paper Pro Bowl.
Paper Tigers.
So I think that's the only one. I don't know. Maybe there's an O lineman that you really don't have any whole. I mean, I guess maybe pancake stats or whatever.
D Law may be one.
Okay. So that's it.
So we said good players. They ain't even got any good players.
Well, I mean, Zeke's a good player. I just don't think
they're talented. They are talented, but you have to want to perform your talent.
But I mean, we're talking
a team and a coach to play for, and they don't want to.
We're talking about players getting paid like Pro Bowlers, not making the Pro Bowl.
That's true. That's true. I mean, but I think the way the Pro Bowl is now,
it's a joke.
So if they have any Pro Bowlers, they don't have any All Pro.
It's like the NBA's. It's like NBA when the All-Star, the people get to the All-Star game and then they're like, oh, I'm not going to play. So then they have to get somebody else. So they might have some replacement players make it to the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I can see that.
But as far as like the All Pro voting and stuff, you don't think?
I mean, I don't see it. I don't see how you can get a 8-8 team, which I think they're going to end up as.
Over or under 2 players on the All Pro list this year for Dallas?
First selection, they can't be replacements.
No, like not the Pro Bowl, like
not
the
Pro
actual
Bowl.
All Pro.
No, under, easy.
I'll say under as well.
Under, yeah, and that's crazy with the amount of money that they're throwing around over there.
Yeah, and I'll kind of end the Cowboys talk right here because we're going to go through the slate for tomorrow. Jerry Jones, I heard some of the I can't remember what radio station it was, but some of his interview with them on Friday, and he got on the radio host. He was like he told him to get his stuff together, and he was like dropping BS's and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, really, Jerry, you're gonna tell a radio host to get his act together when you're a billionaire owner, you have all the resources that you need, you have you have the talent that you need, but you have been putting out a mediocre product for decades now. And you're going to come in on Friday and try to tell a radio host, somebody that's doing their job, that they're not doing their job. I mean, are you it's like, Jerry, do you want to be the kettle or the pot? Which one do you want to be? So don't come in on this radio show. To me, I would have just been like, dude, like, are you serious right now? I know the radio host probably can't really do that, because you can't, I guess cut ties.
Burn that bridge.
Yeah, you can't burn that bridge. But Jerry just trying to get on somebody about the way they're doing their job is a joke to me, because the way he's been doing his job for, like you said, decades has been mediocre. He's been putting out a mediocre product, and there's not even a conference championship for years and years and years. And we talked about it on episode 31 on Wednesday. There's kids that are Cowboys fans now that don't know what it's like to have a good Cowboys team.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for them. Zach.
But I mean, that kind of goes along to what Paul was saying earlier, is if you're that radio host and you say, well, then you do your job.
Right.
Jerry Jones could just say, I am doing my job. We're making money.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's actually where I was going to.
Is his job to make money, or is his job to win? Because those don't go hand in hand anymore.
No, you're right.
Jerry's been quoted saying, he's like, I do great every year. He goes, I can come in fifth or sixth and I do very well. And that's true.
Mm-hmm.
If you come in fifth or sixth in revenue for the NFL, you're doing fantastic. But it's not, you're not measured by your revenue intake. You're measured by Super Bowl rings and playoff appearances. And there have been few and far between for 25 years.
But do you think that's the case? Is a GM or owner of a team measured by wins or losses, or are they measured by revenue?
The owner is, I think, more the revenue.
Yes.
The GM is wins and losses.
And Jerry's both.
And the fact that he's both.
So then what?
The fact that he's both just it has been the issue for the Dallas Cowboys for the past 2 decades, because he's not being held to the same standard as other general managers, in my opinion.
Because he's his own boss. And I mean, granted, everybody wants to be their own boss, but he's consistently put out a mediocre product, like I said, over and over again, trying to do the same thing. Yeah. Definition of insanity, expecting different results. And, sorry, Jerry, but, it's time to, let go of the reins, man. I mean, let's see what Steven can do, right? Mm-hmm.
So
ego's the enemy.
All right, let's go down this slate tomorrow. I'll let you go ahead and do that there, Paul.
So we'll hold off for the Texans till the end. But Panthers at Falcons, big divisional matchup. Atlanta, 3.5-point favorite.
Yeah, Ron Rivera out as head coach for the Panthers. Atlanta's the favorite?
Atlanta is the favorite.
I'll take Atlanta.
Minus 3.5?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay.
So which vacancy is Ron Rivera going to take next year?
Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, gosh, please.
The Browns?
Don't say that. I could see him being. I could see him coming in with a young name to Dallas as a DC. I would really like to see that. But as far as him being the head coach, I think he needs to take a step back. I mean, he's a very disciplined and orderly head coach, but I think that suits better for a coordinator position. He just doesn't have enough politician in him to be that HC for me.
And I mean, the success that he had with Carolina was when that was a really young team. It was a younger Cam Newton. It was a young. What?
No, I was gonna let you finish.
I mean, it was just a young core that he had there, and I mean that's what they have in Cleveland. And so I think that makes sense.
I know that's a very good point, but I think him, and when Carolina was being built, David Gettleman, who's that GM for New York, was the GM there in Carolina, and they're possibly going to be a move with the Giants head coach, and I know Garrett says he wants to go there, but it makes real sense to bring in Ron Rivera for Gettleman in New York for the Giants.
That's a good point. That's a real good point. But I think Ron Rivera is going to have a job next year. Do you guys think?
Head coaching
job?
Yeah, he'll be a head coach for sure. Yeah.
All right. So I still take Atlanta minus 3.5, Zach.
He's going to coach the Longhorns.
You taking anybody's that?
I mean, they both stink. I don't care.
Right.
I'm gonna take the Panthers plus 3.5.
Oh, okay.
Ravens at Bills, very interesting quarterback matchup there. Baltimore 6-point favorite.
So Ravens won this game in week 1, 47-3.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow the game's in Buffalo. From what I heard this morning, the weather forecast is in the 40s, so not like too crazy.
Any precipitation?
I do not know, but I know the wind gusts are going to be up to 40 miles per hour. So
I don't know if there's any precipitation, but I think it might rain. either.
So I'm going to
But
review
it won't
the.
snow.
It looks like it's going to be partly cloudy, 44 degrees, kickoff.
I don't think either. I mean, they've shown that neither team is really going to be affected by it either way.
By the wind, 40-mile-an-hour winds. You don't think?
I mean, if anything, because they both throw the crap out of the ball.
So
Can we not say shit?
Well, yeah, you can.
Because you didn't say shit when you were saying Jerry Jones said he needs to get his.
Oh, I don't know, dude.
Stuff
it's because
together.
it's because my mom watches. But you can say whatever you want.
Sorry, Chris's mom.
That's okay. You can say whatever you want.
I mean, they both throw the stuff out of the ball, so I mean, it's not like neither of them have like Peyton Manning with Broncos arms or whatever. It's really going to be affected.
Josh
by
Allen's
that.
got a pretty good arm, doesn't he?
No, that's what I'm saying. They both throw
Yeah.
the stuff out of the ball as in stuff as
Just
in
say shit,
velocity. Well, you didn't say it, so I'm not gonna say it.
All right, whatever.
go ahead.
So I mean, they both throw the ball with like a lot of velocity. So and they both have a very very solid run game. I mean, Devin Singletary has been like really really good for the Bills.
Yeah.
So
Coming on.
so I mean, I think this is a good game. I think the Bills are significantly better than when they played the
than
Ravens
week
before.
one.
And not even necessarily because they've had like personnel changes or anything, but just because they have a couple wins under their belt, a couple big wins. So I think this team is playing with a little bit more swag, and I think like an on fire Josh Allen is up there.
I think these two guys at quarterback are going to give us a show with their legs up.
I mean, they do similar stuff, just Lamar faster.
Oh, definitely. And I think that Allen's just a little bit stronger, but in the red zone, man, I think we're going to see a lot of points in this game just because they're going to try to go tick for tack, put the ball, down the field, lots of speed. I just think my Super Bowl pick is the Baltimore Ravens. I just don't see anybody stopping them right now. I like the way they're playing football.
So 6.5 point favorites. You say?
6.5 point favorites tomorrow at 12. Yep.
I'll take Buffalo.
If Buffalo doesn't cover that, then they're getting blown.
You want Buffalo in the points?
Yeah, and the points.
We'll talk after the show. Next game, Bengals at Browns. Cleveland. Wow, 7-point favorite.
Baker's playing with a bruised hand, and he's been quoted as saying, "As Mama didn't raise no wuss."
Okay.
So 7-point favorites for Cleveland against Cincinnati. I think I would take Cleveland.
Cincinnati's still tanking for Tua. They don't even.
I'm not
for two.
I'll take Cleveland's money line. I'm not taking that spread.
All right, and Baker is no wuss, right?
Yeah, I think he's established that.
Okay.
Redskins at Packers. Packers 12.5 point favorite.
Wow. And the Packers have won 4 straight home games against the Redskins. They've outscored Washington 122-43 in those contests. 12? Is it 12?
12.5.
12.5. Dang. Your Packers,
They play good at home.
big favorites in this. Zach, you're a Packers fan. Do you take those 12.5 points? Do you think that the Packers win by 2 touchdowns?
And the Packers have shown if they're going to win a game, they're going to win a game. The games that they're not running away with are the games that they're losing. Mm-hmm. So and especially at home, especially in the cold weather. I mean, Aaron Rodgers tends to go crazy through the air and kind of defy the weather odds offensively. So I mean, I think the Packers win by 15.
Okay.
Lions at Vikings. Divisional matchup. Minnesota 13-point favorite.
Dang.
There's still no Stafford?
Now David Blau's making his second start. 13?
13-point favorite.
Huh. I think I might take Detroit in the points.
Don't you put
I think I'm going to take Detroit in the
money
points.
on Blau.
I'm not going to put money on it. I'm just saying. I like Detroit in the points. I wouldn't put money on it. Just like I wouldn't put money on the Cowboys the other night.
You wouldn't put anything on the Cowboys the other night.
Right.
All right. 49ers at Saints. Interesting. Huge matchup. Saints 2-point favorite.
So the Saints have scored 26 or more points in their last 6 games. They only lost 1. And that was 26-9 to Falcons in Week 9, but they avenged that loss last week. So the Saints have scored a pretty good amount of points in the past 6 games, 26 plus. We know how good this 49ers defense is. 49ers defense good enough to stop Drew Brees and this offense.
I mean, I think Drew Brees is the type of quarterback that 49ers defensive line kind of salivates at. A quarterback that doesn't have the mobility to run away from them the way that Lamar Jackson did. Or I mean, you could even argue that Aaron Rodgers is significantly more mobile than Drew Brees, and he wasn't able to have any success against them. And I mean, I think watching the majority of that Packers 49ers game has just kind of scarred me for life when it comes to that defensive line. I think they're legit, and I think the 49ers, I mean, not only cover this spread, but win straight up.
All right.
I like the Saints in this game, but they're going to have to be creative, and Sean Payton can do that. You're going to have to move the pocket, roll Drew Brees out, utilize Kamara with throwing the ball out of the backfield, some screens here or there, get to that over pursue from the defensive line for the 49ers. But Garoppolo, I mean, he can keep you in the game, but I just think that the Saints, and I think that's why you can see that from the spread.
He's not going to win it for you, but he'll keep you in it.
He'll keep you in it, but I think that Drew Brees does enough, and late field goal gets them the W.
So I think I'm in that same on that same bus, in that same boat, whatever transportation we want to use. I think it's going to come down to, similar to when the 49ers played the Seahawks a few weeks ago, it's going to come down to a last couple of drives. And give me Drew Brees over Jimmy Grapes any day.
Jimmy Grapes. I like that. Nice. Dolphins at Jets. Jets 5-point favorite at home.
So the Jets won 3 in a row, and then they lost to the Bengals.
I can't understand.
Like what? So the Jets are 5-point favorite. We saw the Dolphins win against the Eagles last week, and they won pretty big.
Yeah. Fitzmagic.
So I don't know. I'm really kind of confused by this line right now.
But for real, I think the Dolphins are for real tanking for Tua because Tua got hurt, so his stock started slipping. So they were like, "Oh, he's probably gonna be picked like 6 now, so I got to win some games so I can be there." Yeah,
we can turn it up a little bit.
Oh, okay. So they were tanking, and then they're like, "Okay, well, let's win this one."
This is draft stock.
because the guy that we're tanking for
okay.
is starting to slip.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the Dolphins are about where they want to be now.
But who are we taking? Jets 5-point favorites at home. I will take the Dolphins and the points.
I'm taking the Jets.
I'm taking the
money
Jets
line.
because the Dolphins are where they want to be now to get Tua.
Yeah.
So the Dolphins are done winning. Yeah,
4-5.
they're done winning.
Fair enough.
All right, Colts at Buccaneers. Tampa Bay at home favored 3 points.
So the Colts they claimed a kicker Chase McLaughlin off of waivers. So they're gonna have 2 kickers on their roster this Sunday.
Chris, why don't you talk about what we've been talking about offline about how these kickers may need a little bit more pay?
So I was talking about, I think Zach, you were here. I was thinking, I'm thinking kickers now should be incentivized for the kicks that they make. Now I don't know what the CBA says and how they're supposed to structure contracts and all that other jazz or whatever, but I think it should be similar to like in fantasy football, when a kicker hits a 30-yard field goal, you get 3 points. They hit a 40-yard field goal, you get 4 points. Mm-hmm. I think their contract should be structured the same way. They hit a 30-yard field goal, they get $20,000 or $30,000. You hit a 40-yarder, you get $40,000. You get incentivized. You have a base, you have a base contract, and then you get incentivized for all those field goals.
Do you lose money for missing?
You don't lose.
No,
you don't lose money for missing because you have your base contract. But if you're making these, big time field goals, then you should get paid for it.
Well, if I play devil's advocate and you're a kicker and I'm the owner, GM of the team, and I don't want to pay you, I don't want to pay a bunch of money for my kicker. Mm-hmm. I tell my coach, if you're at 4th and short within this range for a big field goal, regardless of if you can make it or not, what if I tell my coach, like, you need to go for it every time because we're not paying our kicker?
So, I mean, you could do that if you're not trying to win a football game. But most of the time, you're going to try to win a football game, right? Because, I'm sorry, but $40,000 to a billionaire owner isn't a whole lot of money.
Pennies.
So, I do see where that could happen if we're in a tanking for Tua situation, on the Dolphins or the Bengals or, the Jets or whatever. But, well, not the Jets because they got Darnold. But you know what I'm saying? I think that would be mitigated with the fact that most of the time you're going to be trying to win football games, and the fact that it's not a whole lot of money.
I fall in the middle to where I think you should incentivize based off kicks, depending on the severity of the kick. Like if it's in inclement weather, there should be some kind of rider attached to it. If it's a game-winning field goal, there should be a rider attached to it. But at the same time, if you're missing extra points, then I think that's where we need to start deducting some income, because extra points are a very controlled, isolated event. They're very routine. You practice that very often. And so I say, look, if you're missing extra points that cause us to lose games, that's where we think we need to. Yes, Chris, it's performance based, and that's what these contracts are all built into.
Is decentivize a word? Is that a word?
I don't know. Look it up. It could be.
So let's use that as a word. I think if you're going to incentivize kicks, you have to decentivize misses.
Okay, and this is my argument against that. Okay. So if you're a quarterback or a running back or a wide receiver and you throw an interception or you fumble, should you be decentivized?
Yes, because in fantasy we lose points.
Well,
if you apply to that money contract.
If you're a receiver, say you're a receiver making league minimum, like most kickers are. If you drop hella passes, you get cut. You don't get paid.
So you lose money. Yeah.
You're decentivized. So if a kicker misses kicks, they should be.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. But most of the time, when the kicker misses kicks, they're getting cut, right?
But it's not happening. It's happening where they get cut and then they get picked up by another team, and it's like you're picking up somebody else's mess.
So in other words, if you have a kicker. And I've noticed this too. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but lately, if they kick a field goal on any team right now, if the camera stays on the kicker, like the whole team goes up to him now, and they're like, "Oh, they're patting him on the head." And I mean, it used to be like, "Oh, he made the field goal, everybody run to the sidelines." Now, like the whole special teams are coming over and like giving high fives and everything because for some reason, kicking has become difficult in the NFL and college, and I think now like. I think the coaches are saying like, hey, if our kicker makes a field goal, everybody go pat him on the head.
Well, it's because of the rule changes. They move the ball back to make it a little bit more difficult because they want these games. They want teams going for two late in the games, and they want games to be decided on potentially an extra point. And that's where we come into this realm where it's like, hey, yeah, you need to go pat him on the back because if he doesn't make that, we lose by one. Or if he doesn't make that extra point, we lose the game for whatever reason or go into overtime.
You got anything else on the kicker, Zach?
No, I think it's and then just flip a coin. Every time you go for it, your kicker walks to the middle of the field and the ref flips a coin and you got to pick.
Oh, okay.
And if they win, then you get the points.
We get the points or not. Yeah, I don't know.
Or they just play rock paper scissors against the other.
That would be good.
And so they stop calling it kickers; they call it scissors.
That's a whole different thing there.
My name is Chris Sanchez. I scissor for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's what you can say right there.
Chargers at Jaguars. Chargers are a 3.5-point favorite.
Jaguars. Didn't you have something about this, Zach? You said Nick Foles is the Ryan Fitzpatrick of the postseason. Is that what you said?
Oh, yeah. So
what does that mean?
So basically what Ryan Fitzpatrick does in the regular season, where he'll lose you a game, or he'll flat out win the game for you by himself, no matter who is around him, no matter who's in front of him, behind him, whatever. That's what Nick Foles does in the postseason.
Okay.
In the regular season, don't call Nick Foles his number. He doesn't want to play. In the postseason, he could win you some games.
Okay.
And I think that's the same thing. What else did I say? I said some other people too.
You said also that Ryan Tannehill is the Andy Dalton of the South. You said that too, but that's the next game we're going to talk about. So let's stick right now with Nick Foles as Ryan Fitzpatrick of the postseason. But Nick Foles has been benched for Minshew Mania Part 2, by the way,
because it's the regular season. He doesn't get activated. This doesn't tickle his fancy. The regular season doesn't. But I mean, in the postseason, if they make, they're not going to make the postseason. But if they make the postseason, I think you could have an argument. Because Gardner Minshew has shown that he can win you some games, but he's not the long term guy that's going to win you a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
If I was the Jags, Gardner Minshew at 0-0-0 on the clock of the last regular season game, you're no longer my starter. Nick Foles.
You made it. You got us into the postseason. You know they're not going to make the postseason like you said, but. If they were in that situation where they get into the postseason, then you bring in Nick Foles to be your quarterback for postseason.
And I think that's what now that Tom Brady's getting old, I think that's what teams should do with him is he should become like a pinch hitter.
Yeah.
Teams sign him like at the deadline, sign him, and then he just sits on the bench, maybe like plays like the opposite of these big time quarterbacks where they only play the end.
Yeah.
And then once the postseason starts, he's like a savant of the postseason. So you just put him in there, let him shine, let him do his thing. He's not taking the hits because he's playing 16 less games.
Yeah.
He's like a pinch hitter.
So this Jags and who was it? I already
Chargers
forgot.
and Jags.
Chargers and Jags.
Y'all talking about stuff that's been happening since way in the back with
I know.
Earl and Johnny Unitas with the Baltimore Colts. Anyway, Chargers, Jaguars, Chargers.
It's the Baltimore Ravens and the Indianapolis Colts.
No, well, yes, it is now. Yes, it is now.
Who's favored?
Chargers favored 3.5-point favorites.
Ooh, that's it.
Who are they playing?
The Jags.
Oh, I don't know. They both stink.
I'll go with Chargers. I'll take that.
Titans at Raiders. Tennessee is a 3-point favorite
And this
on
is
the road.
And this is where the thing that Zach said. Ryan Tannehill is Andy Dalton of the South. Explain that to us, Zach.
So I mean, technically they're both in the South. So
Okay,
that
well,
argument could be made both ways. But
right.
Andy Dalton playing in Cincinnati. I mean, they took him out for some reason. They benched him, and they continued to lose. Maybe it's tank for Tua, whatever. They put him back in, and they start winning some games. If Cincinnati's going to win with the guys they have on their team, it's going to be with Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton has been one of those guys that's a good quarterback, a solid quarterback, but he's a victim of the circumstance that he's in. He's a victim of being in Cincinnati. He's a victim of not having the weapons around him. I mean, he didn't have the guys that Carson Palmer had, so he's never been one to have more than A.J. Green. He's never had a real running game, and that's kind of what Ryan Tannehill has been in too. And Ryan Tannehill was in Miami, named starter in Miami. Never really had weapons around him. Devontae Parker can never stay healthy. Never had a solid running game around him. The defense has never been up to par to kind of save him when he needs it. But by yourself, those guys can win you games. Those guys, there's a reason that Andy Dalton has been a starter in the league for as long as he have, and I think that's what Tennessee is finding out with Ryan Tannehill too. There's a reason this guy started in Miami. I mean, there's something that those guys saw, and they're kind of these really slept on guys, these guys that are talked about as being trash, but really it's because of their team. I mean, I think the Bengals are trash. I don't think Andy Dalton is. I think, and I think the Titans are like, wow, look what we found on our roster that we thought was going to just be our backup.
From from what I've been hearing, like apparently the Titans really like Ryan Tannehill, like as a team, like his teammates, I really respond to him, and they're liking what they're getting from Ryan Tannehill. So, I guess maybe a lot of times it's just about the environment you're in and the guys around you. So I think maybe Ryan Tannehill's the guy that these Titans players need at the quarterback position right now.
He just needs to be believed in, kind of like Andy Dalton is like. Andy Dalton has shown you if you lose your faith in me, you're going to lose. So you gotta ride out with these guys.
No love for the Raiders.
What do you mean?
No love. You're taking Chargers. I'm sorry. You're taking Tennessee.
What's the line?
3 points. Tennessee +3. I'm sorry, -3.
-3. Is it it's at Tennessee, right?
No, it's on the road.
Oh, it's on the road?
Yeah.
Huh.
Derrick Henry travels.
Bro, you ain't lying.
Yeah, I'll take Tennessee.
Same. Chiefs at Patriots. Huge matchup. 3:30. New England 3-point favorite. On the road. I'm sorry.
No, they're at home.
At home.
So the Chiefs demolished the Raiders 40-9 last week. The Patriots lose to the Texans 28-22. Chiefs on the road. Mahomes is, I think, healthy now.
Give me Mahomes +3 all day.
Zach?
And they're playing the Patriots?
Yes.
The Patriots are bouncing back or they're falling off.
All right.
The Patriots need to win this game or else that place is going up in flames.
I'm taking the Patriots winning the AFC Championship rematch.
John Columbus Steelers at Cardinals. Pittsburgh is a 2-point favorite with a Duck quarterback.
So Duck Mania still going on with Devlin Duck Hodges, and this is the return of Marquise Pouncey as well.
Yep.
So 2-point favorites on the road.
On the road, 2
against
points.
Cardinals. Connor's out still. I think Schuster's still out as well. Yep. I'm going to take the Steelers with the 2 points.
Not me. I'm taking the Cardinals.
They both stink.
Okay.
Seahawks at Rams. Primetime Sunday night. Even.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Seahawks on the road in the Coliseum. Yep.
What?
Yep.
So the Rams, their next three opponents are the Seahawks, Cowboys, and the 49ers, and then they end with the Cardinals.
What do the boys in the desert know that we don't?
I have no clue.
Seahawks, what's wrong? Carson's playing well. Russell Wilson's playing MVP level.
There's something
DK
going
Metcalf is catching balls everywhere.
on. That almost makes you want to pick the Rams in this game, just because of the line. Because the boys, like you said, the boys in the desert know something. I don't know.
The Rams stink.
Okay.
They're done.
Broncos at Texans, noon. Houston, 8.5 point favorite. Very odd line. 8.5 points.
Oh, you know who else stinks? It's the Broncos.
They do.
They're real bad.
I will take Broncos with the points, though.
I will not. I'll take Texan money line. I don't care what it is.
Von Miller and Khalil Mack should just go start their own team somewhere else.
That's true.
True. Giants, Eagles, bad against worse. Philly, 9.5 point favorite.
That's Monday Night Football.
Yep.
I mean, they couldn't flex nothing.
Flex that, please.
NFL, you couldn't flex nothing.
Chiefs, Patriots couldn't flex it.
I mean, yeah. And from what I understand, Daniel Jones is still hurt or is hurt. We're hurting right now, and there's a possibility that Eli gets to start.
Well, I think they said Eli is starting.
Oh, he is starting.
They
Okay, all right. So Eli is starting this game against the Eagles. I mean,
Is that why they're 9.5 point favorites?
The Eagles just need to win so the Cowboys don't make the playoffs.
But even if they win, Dallas is still tied with the tiebreakers, and then they play, I think, next week.
So the Cowboys are.
Jesus, Paul.
So the Cowboys are Giants fans right now, right?
Yeah, have to be.
Okay.
Have to be.
All right, so let's go Giants. All right, and that's week. What week is this? 13?
This is week 14.
14? Oh man. Woo, we getting there. All right, well let's wrap this thing up. It looks like Big 12 championship right now. 10-3 OU is up on Baylor. Looks like it's about 10 minutes and 20 seconds left there in the second quarter. So shout out to everybody that joined the Facebook Live. Shout out to Snoop Daniel. Shout out to Maynard Mustangs. Let's go Wham Nation. And let's beat Shadow Creek. Let's go Lake Travis.
Yeah,
Westlake with the big win last night. So ReconAthlete.com podcast episode number 32. We out. Paulie, do your thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, if y'all enjoying the podcast, please like, subscribe. Tell us who your favorite team is in the comments down below. Of course, hit that bell for the notifications. We gone.